All right, let's dive into a story. It's an ancient one, thousands of years old, but you know what? It speaks directly to a feeling that every single one of us knows so well, that feeling of being completely and totally stuck. We're going to talk about that moment of helplessness and the surprising place where the real power to move forward actually comes from.
I mean, you've been there, right? Maybe it's a project at work, a tough spot in a relationship, or just one of those days where nothing's going right. You just hit a wall and think, there's no way I can do this alone. I need a miracle, like right now. You just feel paralyzed, kind of frozen, just waiting for something, anything to come along and save you.
Well, guess what? That feeling isn't new. It's as old as humanity. And there's this fantastic old story, one of Aesop's fables, called Hercules and the Wagoner, that just tackles this problem head on. And the lesson it has for us, it's so simple, but man, is it powerful.
Okay, so our story kicks off on a muddy road, which, let's be honest, is where a lot of frustrating days begin, right? But this isn't really about a wagon and some mud. That's just a symbol, a perfect metaphor for any time in our own lives when our progress just grinds to a sudden, messy halt.
So picture this. You've got a farmer, he's driving his heavy cart, and it's just poured rain. The road is an absolute disaster. His horses are straining, they're struggling, and then bam, it happens. One of the wheels just sinks deep, deep into the mud, right up to the axle. I mean, they are not going anywhere, completely and totally stuck. So what does our farmer do? He climbs down from his wagon, takes one look at this mess, and does absolutely nothing. Yep, nothing. He doesn't even try to dig the wheel out. He doesn't try to lighten the load. He just stands there and starts cursing his bad luck, blaming the world for his problem. And then, believe it or not, he takes it a step further. He starts shouting, calling out for the strongest hero he can think of, Hercules, to just, swoop down from the heavens and magically fix everything for him. He's completely mixed up prayer with having an actual plan. But of course, the story doesn't end there. In fact, this is the big turning point. This is where some real wisdom finally arrives on the scene. Just not at all in the way our farmer was hoping for. So Hercules actually appears. Can you believe it? But he doesn't just magically lift the wagon out of the mud. Nope. He looks at the farmer and basically says, "Get to work, man. The gods don't help people who won't even try to help themselves. Put your own shoulder to the wheel." And so the farmer, probably a little stunned, gets down in the muck, he puts his shoulder to that wheel, he encourages his horses, and what do you know? The wagon starts to move. In fact, the story says it moves very readily. The actual physical work it took was surprisingly little, but the will to actually do it, that was everything. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the story, to what we can call the principle of the push. It's all about understanding what's required, what's absolutely necessary, before you can get any kind of help or make any real progress. You've probably heard the saying, God helps those who help themselves. Well, this fable is where that comes from. The idea is that divine help, or really any kind of help, doesn't show up until after you've already put in the work. It's not saying don't ask for help. It's saying you have to do your part first. And what this story does so brilliantly is lay out the two choices we have when we get stuck, right? On one side, you have passive hope. That's the whining, the waiting, the blaming. And on the other, you have active effort, the pushing, the working, the taking responsibility. The fable makes it crystal clear that only one of those paths is going to get you out of the mud. So that's a cool story from a long time ago. But let's bring it into today. What does a farmer's wagon stuck in the mud have to do with your life, with my life? Well, as it turns out, everything. Because we all have our own wagons, and we all get stuck in our own ruts. I mean, just think about it for a second. In our personal lives, right? Someone complains about being out of shape, but never actually goes to the gym. That's them waiting for Hercules. Or in relationships, someone feels lonely, but never ever reaches out to make plans with a friend. That's just staring at the stuck wagon. And at work, a business owner complains about slow sales, but doesn't make the calls, doesn't improve the product. That is literally cursing your bad luck instead of putting your shoulder to the wheel. All right, so the big question is, how do we stop waiting and actually start pushing? How do we make that shift? Well, the fable actually gives us a pretty clear roadmap for moving from that passive, woe is me mindset to an active, let's do this one. It all starts with getting really honest with yourself and asking, where am I just complaining instead of acting? Then you have to acknowledge the power you already have. You don't need some miracle to get started. All you have to do is commit to that first tiny push, that one small thing you can do right now. Because the real obstacle here isn't the mud, it's not the problem itself, It's our own inaction. And to really lock this mindset in, to make it a habit, you can try using a few simple declarations. Think of them like little mantras to get you into action mode. Things like, I take responsibility for my circumstances, or I prioritize effort over complaining. And of course, the big one, I put my shoulder to the wheel. And really, that's the bottom line. The difference between being stuck and being free, between failure and success, so often, it just comes down to the will to make that very first push. The solution you're waiting for, it probably isn't going to drop down from the heavens. It's going to come from the strength that you apply right here, right now. So the next time you feel that stuck feeling creeping in, just ask yourself, what's the one small push I can make?